just felt, mentally I felt exhausted. I felt drained. I felt really sad and disappointed that at every turn the school wasn't doing anything to help me and that my reputation was on the line, something that I had worked to build. She could just, within a second, toss around her power and that could all change. And then it was affecting my sleep and it was affecting my personal relationships and it was just consuming me. I couldn't really find a way to be happy without venting.
I was there all nervous and, I was so weak, internally weak at that time. I was so broken. And then my breaking point was finally when we were in a group meeting and they just put me down so bad and I just got up out of my seat, packed up my computer, packed up all my bags and I just left.
And if you're sensitive, and he was to begin with, Jason was never anyone he wouldn't fight. He was always helping someone. And when it places you at risk of becoming someone's target, because they see a weakness. They see kindness. Bullying is very personal. It's personal. It's a one-on-one kind of a thing. Someone doesn't like you and they go after you because they have the leverage and the power to do it. So patients suffer as a result of this. My patients, none of them died, but they didn't have the whole me because I was being bullied. I did the right thing, okay, when you speak up, okay, that's the right thing to do. And now I'm out of work now, and now my son is dead. I have faced my greatest fear, and that's why I said, what can they do to me? What can they do to me?
Dear Bully, by way of introduction, I am a filmmaker. And for the past 10 years, I've been trying to understand why bullying has become such a big part of American society, and why a large part of society doesn't even believe bullying is real. I hope this film will create awareness so we can change our mindset, battle our bullies, and advocate for needed change in our society.
So I am one of the coordinators for the Massachusetts Healthy Workplace Bill, and we're basically trying to make severe cases of workplace bullying illegal in Massachusetts. I was bullied about 10 years ago or so at work, and I couldn't believe that what was happening to me was legal. So I got in touch. I found Professor David Yamada at Suffolk Law, which is in the same city as where I was working, and I've just been trying to push for the past 10 years this legislation and trying to build not just advocacy but awareness. A lot of people don't know the term workplace bullying. It's not really a household term yet, so I feel like a lot of the battle in trying to pass legislation is really trying to just educate people as to what they're experiencing and that this is a thing and that it shouldn't be legal. We just finished a legislative session and it made it to the Senate, which is in past sessions. We've had 3 full sessions that we've worked on in the past. We've made it as far as the House. So it basically made it to an equivalent spot. I think one of our challenges in going up against other issues like the opioid crisis is just making this an urgent issue, helping legislators understand that it can lead to suicide, it can lead to homicide, and just how many people, upwards of 1 in 3 people experience this. So that's kind of been the big challenge is helping people understand what it is, understand that it's an urgent need to correct. I think it's a challenge, especially for people who haven't experienced it before.
I was in a very caring role, which is a social worker. So by day, I'm a social worker. I'm an accredited mental health therapist. I actually go around and offer therapeutic work. And I was in a team of other psychologists, social workers, and speech pathologists, and that's the team that I got bullied in. I used to come home crying, and my husband's like, aren't you working with people who are supposed to be helping others? And I'm like, I know. You know, it's just funny the way it works. I was there for a good 4 years, and I would say that I got bullied probably within the last 2 years. I was a very, very hard worker. Well, I'm always a hard worker, and the boss was complimenting me on my work in front of the team. And I had some friends who were next to me who were also getting bullied, and then you had your other, so half of the room were getting bullied, half of the other room were the bullies, and they didn't like that I was a hard worker and I was getting good comments and I was getting a lot of success in my work. So they would bully me about all sorts of things, from commenting on the way I was dressed to trying to humiliate me in group meetings. And, you know, the manager could see it all happening. When I finally felt empowered enough to talk to my manager about it, she said, yeah, you know, I did notice this was happening to you. But she didn't do anything about it. She did attempt to do a mediation session, which was the last thing I wanted to do because I felt so broken and torn to pieces. And the last thing I wanted to be was being in a room with a bully. But I understood, you know, well, suck it up. You know, you want things to improve, you need to follow the processes. So that's what I did. So we had the bully on one side and I had me on the other side, and we just waited and waited for the manager, and she just never turned up. Funnily enough, see, I was always really tiny. As I am, I'm a very tiny person, and I was very well protected at school. So I think there were only very minor incidences, but I was so protected by others, no one would dare to keep bullying me. So everyone treated me very well. I mainly was bullied in the workplace. That was my first time I had ever really experienced bullying to the point of I'm not coping with life right now.
It's your boy KD3. Let's go! Ha! Let the beat drop! Ha! You can bully me, but I will bully you back. You can bully me, but I will bully you back. I don't even care if you're white or you're black. You can bully me, but I will bully you back. You can bully me, but I will bully you back. You can bully me, but I will bully you back. You can bully me, but I will bully you back. You can bully me, but I will bully you back. When I be a bully, that's not for me.
Jay was a nurse. He's a registered nurse. And he worked actually at the same hospital that I worked, and I'm still working at. Yeah, I'm going back. I've been there probably 28 years, and
Wow.
Jay was a new nurse. I know, Jay was a new nurse. So he was an RN, and a really good RN. I can tell you, if he wasn't a good RN, I wouldn't say it.
Right.
He was a good RN, yeah. I was doing a lead by example, health and fitness with my relative, and I needed one more trainer. And I asked my son, he wasn't working at a hospital at the time. He was working elsewhere as a nurse. And I asked him, I said, I need one more trainer. And he didn't want to leave his gym. And Jay had a hard time saying no. So Jay came on board. And each trainer, I was one, Jay was one. There were two others that were trainers. And we had like 4 in our group. And when the hospital heard that I was doing this, there were a couple from HR that wanted to join in, and the head of nursing actually joined in. Well, HR was extremely fond of Jason. Jason got a job on nights. And at that time, there was a new transition program at the hospital to go into. It was like a training program for a nurse to go into the ICU. In order to do that, you had to transition into what hospitals call a step down or a FICU, what we were calling it. So the patients that came out of the ICU weren't well enough to go on to a regular floor. Not that any patient is well in a hospital. They're there because they're sick. But from the ICU, you put them in a step-down unit. So the head of nursing became friends with Jay, and they loved him. And she transitioned. She had said to me, there's a new program, and I want him in this program. He's a fabulous nurse. And so I asked her, I said, you know what? I said, don't show favoritism. There are other nurses that have been here longer. She says, I'm the boss, I can do it. And she did. So it took Jay off of nights, and it placed Jay on days in the FCICU, which we call it the FICU. The first day Jason met his new boss, after work he called, and we would go over, the day. How was your day? He says, hey, Ma. I said, I met my new boss. And I said, oh, how'd that go? He says, Ma, she doesn't like me. And I said, why do you say that? And he said, Ma, she looked at me with a robotic gaze, like she saw someone else behind me. He says, I can't figure it out. But Ma, I'm telling you, she doesn't like me. So when I asked, I said, who was it, Jay? And when he told me, I knew. There was transference going on here. And I'm going to tell you why.
Let's go back 20 years ago, before Jason had any dreams of becoming a registered nurse. No one could have ever guessed that an extramarital affair that took place before Jason ever came into the picture would have an impact on him. Jason's supervisor, who we'll refer to as SA, had a husband that had an affair with someone who happened to be Jay's mother's cousin. Unfortunately for Jason, whose family is of Cape Verdean descent, their affair caused his supervisor to have a major dislike for anyone of Cape Verdean nationality. According to Gail, she has personally witnessed SA's discrimination of people, specifically patients of Cape Verdean descent, and approached SA with her concerns. Gail was surprised that her concerns resulted in colleagues wanting her to back off and leave SA alone. She did, until she gained more seniority and could not stay idle any longer. Now let's fast forward 10 years from when Gail first started seeing those red flags.
And Jason was late, and she came up to me and she said, your son just flew by me. I'm going to write him up. And I said, now mind you, I'm in the ICU getting ready to go take care of patients that are on ventilators. I said, you do what you have to do. She started to walk away. She stopped. She came back to me, staring at me with daggers, and she said, I'm going to cut his balls off. And she just stared at me and walked away, not watching where she was going. She just stared at me. His boss told him that I was the problem. She couldn't come after me. We were in separate unions. I'm a respiratory therapist. My son's a nurse. She couldn't come after me. She wasn't my boss. She was Jason's boss. So she says, it's your mother that's the problem. Okay? She was a bully. I find out now, probably around a month ago at work, I had to go there, that on the school bus, she was a bully.
To face my demon!
Sabotage in a hospital not only affects the target, but you place patients at risk. And I know because I became the next target after they got rid of Jason. So you do place patients at risk of inadequate care, not receiving medication, or perhaps receiving the wrong medication. Errors happen anyway.
When a company bullies its employees, it bullies its customers. Bullying affects the employees, and the negative ultimately trickles down to the customers, the very people they were entrusted to take care of. In a hospital setting where Jason and SA worked, there can be serious consequences for bullying. If you work in a restaurant, you can be upset and maybe burn a burger. If you work for the United States Postal Service, you might deliver a package to the wrong address. But in a hospital setting, something much worse could happen to the patients. Because the employee is being bullied, mistakes can happen. Medication can be dispersed incorrectly. People can die. All because someone was bullied, then tried to do their job while upset, frightened, angry, or depressed.
And then my breaking point was finally when we were in a group meeting and they just put me down so bad, and I just got up out of my seat, packed up my computer, packed up all my bags, and I just left because I knew that if I didn't leave, I was going to have some pretty serious issues. But funnily enough, just as I was turning my computer off, I was just about to turn the off button on, and I had an old boss that I used to work with years ago, and he just happened to message me at that time and said, "Hey, Giovanna, I'm looking for a really good social worker. Just wondering, what are you doing these days? Would you be interested in working for me?" And I literally just wrote, "I'm on my way." Turned my computer off, got my bags, and I left. Nobody knew where I was going for the day. I just left. I accepted that new role. I went and met that new person, accepted the role straight away, went home and wrote a 7-page resignation. I named who, what, when, how, and how it made me feel, and I left.
So I was working at a big university in Boston when I was bullied. There was a woman who actually was not my boss, but she oversaw one of the projects that I worked on, and she started to take responsibilities away from me, and she was really sneaky about it. And then she created a committee to oversee these responsibilities, saying it was simply advisory. And then later on in the bullying, she accused me of not following procedures that this committee established that were never established. Yeah, basically it was removal of responsibilities with no conversation about performance. In fact, she had been telling me that I was getting great feedback, or people were giving her great feedback about me from professors at the school. And then it led to false accusations once I reported her. And so I went up this chain of command that I thought made sense for me. I went to the head dean. I spoke with my own boss about it. I spoke with eventually HR when there was retaliation involved. They actually, on this particular campus, had like some type of, I forget her actual title, but some type of counselor you could go see. And there were numerous people in my school who went to see her, who reported what was going on. And even she, you know, said to all of us there's nothing that she could really do. If management doesn't want to do anything, you don't really have any options.
And it's really strange the way bullying works, because it sneaks up on you. Like, you kind of put up with things and you think, oh, she's only joking, because you just can't imagine that someone would seriously, say that to you. And before you know it, I remember that the physical sensation I had while I was driving to work. I remember feeling like I had a brick on my head, and each time I got closer, another brick, another brick, another brick, and that's how heavy I felt. Back then, I was just like But yeah, it used to affect me. I just got to the point I couldn't sleep. I lost weight. It was just really starting to affect me. And I'm a very happy-go-lucky person. It takes a lot to get me down. And I was a broken person. I was very down at the time.
I just felt, mentally I felt exhausted. I felt drained coming into work every day, not knowing what tricks she had up her sleeve that were going to just be false information. I felt stressed out. I felt like I felt pressured to find another job before she could come up with her next stunt. I felt really sad and disappointed that at every turn the school wasn't doing anything to help me, and that my reputation was on the line, something that I had worked to build. She could just, within a second, like toss around her power, and that could all change. So, and then it was affecting my sleep, and it was affecting my personal relationships, and it was just consuming me. I couldn't really find a way to be happy without venting. I think it's because they don't have to do anything. I think it's easier to do nothing. I don't think that they understand the financial implications of doing nothing. But I think that one of the reasons we see higher incidences of bullying in schools and hospitals, because these are institutions that they don't work like a business or a regular business or a startup, in that if they have a challenge to their reputation, they have this institutional power behind them that won't knock them down as easily, I guess. So if you're working in government or education or a hospital even, they're still going to have their income flow come in. And I think that's why we see higher incidences of bullying in those areas, because there's just no consequences for bullying, or at least...
Too Big to Fail describes the concept by way of business has become so large that a government will provide assistance to prevent its failure, because not doing so will have a devastating ripple effect throughout the economy. Investopedia.com. Unfortunately for ordinary people like us, we don't matter enough to be taken seriously by companies we devote ourselves to. If we don't own or serve as senior executives or board members in these large companies that governments rely on, our voice risks being muted. These companies feel invincible and powerful enough to do whatever they want to their employees without any repercussion. Why? Because in the end, the government will always bail them out.
They're very quiet. It was an unbelievable shock. And I still haven't come to grips with it. When you lose, every parent has a fear of losing their kid, okay? You just have that fear. I've faced that fear. I live it. And it's a journey, it's a road that has no GPS, and you get stuck. I'm burning inside, but I'm frozen on the outside. I became frozen that day. Time stopped. It stopped. And everything is different. He couldn't take it. He was so depressed. And he hid a lot. You know, he called me that night. And he was worried about working. There was one particular person that reminded him of his old boss, S.A. And he said to me that night, it was like 8:00 something at night, he called. And he said, "Hey, Ma," he says, I hope I don't mess this job up, or and I said, "You're not, Jay." And we hung up, and the last text I got from my son was, "Good night, Mom, I love you." And I texted back, and with encouragement, and I said, my new lucky number is 67. I said, we'll take you out for your birthday after work. And I kept calling, and I was at work. And he had an interview at 12 o'clock, and it was just not Jason not to get in touch with me. So I was nervous. I was like, oh, did he get into an accident? That's what I thought. And so when I went to his condo and I saw his car, and I said, well, maybe someone picked him up. And I had the key, and I walked in. It was just quiet, immaculate, really cute condo, everything in place. And I found him. So, you're not really, at least I'm not, I wasn't. It's like a dream. It was like, this isn't real. It's not real. And then my medical kicked in, and I tried to revive my son. But I knew. So, even though the bullying and all that abuse, it's abuse, took place a few years back, you don't get over that. That follows you. It followed me. And if you're sensitive, and he was, to begin with, Jason was never anyone he wouldn't fight. He was always helping someone. And it places you at risk of becoming someone's target, because they see a weakness. They see kindness.
I want you to know, it's hard for me to say because I'm choked up. I really hate hearing these kind of stories. So excuse me, because it's really choking me up. Let's stop right there. And let me explain why I broke down. 5 years ago, I went to meet Gail to interview her for another film I've been working on entitled When Bullies Become Bosses. After I interviewed her at her home in Cape Cod, she introduced me to her son. They must have been surprised to learn that I myself was a victim of workplace bullying. Jason and I became Facebook friends, and I reached out to him several times to let him know I was there for him if he needed someone to talk to. Day or night, it didn't matter. I reminded him of my experiences and that I related to his ordeal. I wanted to listen if he needed someone to listen. I wanted to help if he accepted my help. During the second interview with Gail, I couldn't help but to feel guilty for not doing more. I could have tried harder. I could have pushed more. Maybe if I said the right things, Jason would still be alive today. I understand now that I wasn't responsible for the fateful choice Jason made to end his life on his birthday of all days. But this will stay with me forever, and Jason will always be in my mind and in my heart. I am going to dedicate my film to your son. I want you to know that. I'm going to dedicate this film to Jason. So everybody knows and that no one forgets. Dear America, families are losing loved ones at an alarming rate. These deaths are all preventable. Why have we become a country that chooses to protect the bully rather than the individual being bullied? In memory of Jason Bennett Almeida. We will help his mother, Gail, create a foundation in his name. The foundation will be called the Jaybird Foundation, and its mission will be to assist survivors of bullying, as well as support the families who have lost loved ones to bullying. Help make this a reality. Thank you for listening, America. Richard Santiago, Director, Survivor of Bullying.
Wait, you were just telling me why I'm not on this floor? I'm on the fourth floor.
This is your unit. You're supposed to be dressed.
I came here, Kate.
On the floor.
Came here. They told me your unit's closed.
Who?
Fourth floor.
Who told you?
PCT.
Who?
What's the night PCT name?
You tell me. Who told you?
We'll go talk to her right now.
Who told you that you were not on the floor?
Not on TQ?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Now the boss. Yeah. Who told you that you weren't
Get
working
my union rep. We're going to have a conversation, you and I. You're going to have my union rep as a third party. Because you have been disrespectful towards me.
Oh, I have.
You like a child. Since that day,
Come on,
I called.
let's go get Sue.
Did Cindy leave for the morning already?
No, she's here.
She's
on lunch.
She's on lunch. I was walking towards her. She said, it's
Changing
closed.
a little bit now.
Come here.
It's changing a little bit now. Let's find Sue. She's not.
Yeah. Wait.
But let's just not talk to me, because I'm not doing that.
Don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to me like that.
Do not open your mouth till we find Sue. Do not.
Connect with real victims of workplace bullying as their story unfolds and forces you to wake up and examine a real and growing problem in today's society. Ooh, I butchered that up, didn't I?
Well, at the moment, it's selling on my website. Any country that is on the PAL system, they can order the DVD through www.lockingproductions.com. So basically, they just pay for it online and I'll send it off to them. And there's a very strong message to the bullies themselves, basically saying that if if you are a type of person that you need to bully other people, you need to go and get help, because putting other people down to make yourself feel better is not actually making you feel better. And you need to go and get help to find out what that gap is inside, get that addressed without ruining other people's lives in the meantime.
I wanted to talk about why I do TV shows and movies about bullying, and why I'm helping with this movie documentary as well. It's been extremely therapeutic for me personally, because I know the detrimental effects that bullying has on people now that I have firsthand experienced it myself. I know that it makes your heart heavy, it makes your mind heavy, and it makes you feel so helpless and hopeless and really miserable. So I'm kind of glad that I've experienced bullying and I got through it safely, because now I feel that I can use that knowledge in helping other people, and that's through filmmaking. You'll never ever hear me say to a person, oh, just get over it, or just ignore it, or just move on, don't worry about it, because it's really hard to ignore continued bullying. It's okay to tolerate it for a little bit, but when it's continuous and it's over and over, it's just really, really hard to do. So by being able to share my knowledge with others and being able to encourage others, it makes it feel like me being bullied it happened for a reason, and I can turn it from a negative to a positive.
Thanks again for allowing me to tell Jason's story. I hope I do it justice. That's all I can hope and pray.